Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. Hope everyone's having a great evening so far. I'm taking a look at our current weather map right now, and it looks like upstate New York in the northeastern part of a country is experiencing moderate to heavy showers that are continuing. Right now there is no severe weather threat to speak of, but that could be a little bit different back here further in Texas. Taking a look at the NOAA outlook for severe possibility, and we are looking at a slight possibility through the heart of Texas. There does remain a slight possibility for severe weather through Texas all the way through the capital region of New York. Other than that, nothing too significant as far as weather is speaking, but there's plenty of grand solar minimum news to report on tonight. First, let's take a look at our space weather conditions. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 419.2 kilometers per second with a density of 6.6. And taking a look at our sun, we are blank, and we have been this way now for 2 straight days. That's 64 days for 2019. And right now that's 57% of the year without sunspots, and we are expecting some geomagnetic unrest coming in from that southern coronal hole on April 25th, as well as the 24th through the 25th, I should say. Let's go ahead and put this in motion, and there we are. So this will, as we talked about on our last broadcast, which I believe was Friday night, we talked about the possibility of this southern coronal hole disrupting the southern part of our magnetic field, and it will. We're talking about solar wind speeds pushing somewhere between 500 and 600 kilometers per second. It is unknown if we are expecting a G1 geomagnetic storm at this point. It is unlikely. As we take a look at our star with any more active regions to be looking for, and right now, this is a pretty quiet sun. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and show some stats as well. We don't have any sunspots. We don't see any around the bend. Solar X-ray flux is low. Proton flux is average to low. And the KP indices have increased slightly going into the overnight hours of the 23rd into the 24th, which is when we are supposed to expect some geomagnetic unrest and increased solar wind speeds. So pretty quiet, right? And here's something else that kind of happened here over the past several days. On April 13th, 2019, we had a TSI reading of 1360.328. Now, on the grand scale of everything, not a lot in value, but we have been monitoring now, and you guys can see back here on the scale where this is the average up and down from day to day. Here we have, this is a 1 day, and then the next time we peak, this is a day 5, and then day 3, and then 5-day peak, and then a drop, and then we get back up. It's been a while since we'd seen a continuous drop like this in TSI, and if I'm not mistaken, I haven't seen a reading in 1360.59, and I think maybe early 2017, late 2016, early 2017. So something to kind of watch here as we are getting closer to the what they call the peak of the minimum, where we really start to see solar minimum conditions start for real in late 2019 and early 2020. So interesting spike, and then over the last several days where I thought seeing TSI values jumping into the 1360.7 range was impressive because of how we have been watching them drop. But here recently, we've seen a trend of the values going up just ever so slightly, and now we're looking at values that, like I said, we have not witnessed in a little bit of time, and we'll keep an eye on this to see where this goes from here. Will this shoot right back up to where we've been, or does this stay in the lower section? Does this signal the next part and chapter of this solar minimum that we are experiencing now? So interesting space weather, and when we have interesting space weather, we get interesting seismic activity on Earth. Shallow and strong earthquake registered by the USGS, a 6.5 hit a western India Antarctic ridge at 1446 UTC time. This was on April 18th, 2019. There was no tsunami from this earthquake. And then we go April 18th still. All right, taking a look at another earthquake. This one here, a strong and shallow earthquake registered by Taiwan's CWB at a 6.1. It hit at 501 UTC time on April 18th, 2019, reporting a depth of 11.7 miles. All right. According to USGS, there was no devastation or any injury at that point. Move ahead to April 22nd. Another 6.1. This one killed at least 16 people, as this one made direct landfall. The other two earthquakes were either out to sea or too far away to matter, but this one did matter, unfortunately. A strong and shallow earthquake registered by the USGS, marked as a 6.1, in Luzon, Philippines on 9/11 UTC, April 22nd, 2019. It says here that there were at least 12 people have died in the town of Porac, northwest of Manila, after a wall of a supermarket collapsed and at least 14 remain missing. A very unfortunate situation. Larcracks were reported in the roads across the province. The quake injured about 81 people and damaged 29 buildings across Luzon. So obviously, out of the earthquakes that we were just talking about, this one had the most impact. And Watchers.news is all over when it comes to the earthquake in Volcano. And here's a 6.0 out in the middle of the ocean. But still, another 6.0, April 22nd. This one hits around 1449 UTC. Let's see, the one previously... that was the first one was 1446. Just looking at some of these UTC times here, folks. A lot of, yep, right here, the West Antarctic Ridge one hit at 1446 UTC time on April 18th. And then we have one here on April 22nd at 1449 UTC time. No tsunamis, no injuries, no deaths of any kind from this earthquake, just another seismic uptick, a 6.0 or higher to mention. And then the same day, a 6.1, and oh, I'm sorry, folks, that was a repeat there. We already talked about that. How about this 6.1? 6.1 in Pradesh, India. And this happened on the 23rd, today, at 2015 UTC time. Registered a 6.1. There's a lot of 6.1 earthquakes in just a span of about 5 days. And right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in just 5 days of 6 point or higher. Again, no injuries or fatalities were reported, but this is fresh information, and we will keep you guys updated to the best of our ability here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And today as well, earlier in the day, I should say, about 7 hours prior to that, we had a 6.4 in the Philippines, the second strong earthquake in 24 hours. This is the second M6 plus earthquake to hit the country since the deadly 6.1 on April 22nd. So, damage right now, nothing coming in. No injuries at this point, last check. But it seems like when we get a break as far as what to talk about with the weather, and the other side of Grand Solar Minimum, which we don't really talk about a whole lot, and we probably should, but there are weeks where we are just overwhelmed with weather events after weather events, whether it's Europe or the United States, And here, just in the last 5 days, I mean, we got 7 strong earthquakes and 2 6.1 or higher in the same region. One area that killed 16 people. Thankfully, this one did not kill anybody. So definitely an uptick in seismic activity. Also, it's safe to say that a gun also had an explosion. So we've got multiple strong earthquakes, several significant volcano eruptions that are in constant eruption phase right now. This is the part of grand solar minimum that I don't think we cover enough. Like I said, we're usually overwhelmed with weather headlines, but John Casey, people we've learned from like him, where we know that he's predicted between 2017 and somewhere around 2037 that we will see a major volcanic eruption and an increase in seismic activity as we continue through solar cycle 25 and we continue to descend towards the grand solar minimum. So these next 3 years are going to be something to watch for everyone who's been telling us that this is just the beginning. And if that's the case, this is just the beginning. And, is this possibly also the beginning of further decreased output in total solar irradiance as well? So total solar irradiance drops, and we get a huge uptick in earthquakes, strong ones, right after this plunge in TSI. So interesting correlation that we have some significance. And yes, it is significance. We don't see the TSI fluctuate more than a value of 0.1 at most times. This drops here at 0.4 in just a couple of days. That's plummeting. And then, like I said, several days after this plummet in TSI, we experienced several earthquakes that are stronger than a 6 point. So just something to look at, interesting to keep an eye on as well. And another interesting article that some Caltech seismologists have identified nearly 2 million previously unidentified tiny earthquakes that occurred between 2008 and 2017 in Southern California, expanding the region's earthquakes by catalog by a factor of 10. Now, this went from 180,000 to 1.81 million earthquakes reported now. They received somewhere around 495 earthquakes on a daily basis. Tiny ones, folks. But what's interesting to me about this time scale here is we're talking about 2008 and 2017. And 2008 was solar cycle 24's deepest minimum. It is predicted it was reported to be one of the deepest minimums in 150 years in that 2008-2009 solar minimum cycle. And so as we look at 2008-2009 wrapping up a minimum cycle, or the peak of it, and we look at the numbers for 2017 as it's descending into another solar minimum, interesting facts to look at, folks. And this is a segment I like to call Letters from Uncle Hans. Good friend of mine who keeps in contact with me from time to time. A very well-respected young person. Former UN. I won't go any further than that. But he has some very interesting times and stories to share with me. And he likes to share these tidbits of facts that I think I'm a moron for not sharing more of these. I've got several of these emails from Uncle Hans. Let's call him Uncle Hans. And today, Uncle Hans writes, April 21st, 2019, Caribou, Maine notched a 163rd consecutive day with at least 1 foot of snow on the ground. Counting from November 10th, 2018, pulverizing its 155-day record from back in November 16, 2002 through April 20th, 2003. highlighting the post-2000 uptrend. Caribou's 2007-8 winter won bronze with 152 days between November 19th through 07 through April 19th of 08. And further confirming post-2000 cold, Caribou's 164.7-inch is this winter is the third gold. So each winter he's talking about here in the 2008, 2007, and then going into the 2017 winter continues to increase in snow, saying that Caribou notched longest ever 132 consecutive days of at least 1 foot of snow on the ground, burying the 1968-69 record of 120 days, which 12 days breaking the record is pretty impressive, of at least a foot of snow on the ground. 4 of the 5 snowiest Northern Hemisphere winters struck in 2007, 2008 through 2013 and 14. New England's 2014-15 blizzard, all records from 1871. February 2015, students also had to leap from second floor windows. The Northeast Snow Impact Scale, high impact nor'easters, including January's 2016 records, Mid-Atlantic Northeast blizzard, to now total 29. So look at this high impact scale, folks. And there's those numbers, 2017, 2018. So it starts in 2008 through 2009 minimum, leading up to the current minimum we're in right now, 2017-18. All right? And look at how many high-impact snow events we have had just in the past 10 years, last cycle. And this is why I should have been sharing these along. So some of these are hard to read. Uncle Hans puts his words together. He gets excited. But this right here, this scale really puts things into perspective. And when you've got your AGW folk out there talking about, oh, you know, it's warming, we're not going to see snow past a certain time and blah, blah, blah. What are your answers to things like this? And proof that the last minimum that we were in was the deepest in 150. And this one right now, NASA's predicting for it to be a deep one as well, if not deeper. So if we've seen this many high-impact snow events in just the last 11 years, imagine what we're going to see in the next 4 years. And everything that we've talked about on this channel and other channels alike have been right so far. Each year since 2016, we've been on a decline on solar activity, lack of TSI, lack of sunspots, lower solar wind speeds leads to a much wavier jet stream, a very out of control, a weak polar vortex leads to more chances for polar Arctic air to be dispersed across the United States. And we're going through that right now. And all signs are pointing ahead, folks, that this ain't going to let up anytime soon. So it's very, very crucial that we start learning how to adapt as soon as possible, because all the stats are pointing towards it. And like I said, Hans has all these great charts and graphs and all these stats here and showing us here where we're at with the snowfall, the Boston 10-year running mean seasonal snowfall. Check this out. It's getting more, there's more snow now than there was before during the heart of global warming, and we've jumped up and continue to jump up. Here's the 2009-2010 all-time snow record. Just again proving the point. All these people that predicted in 2019 that their kids wouldn't see snow again, and then we shattered records that year. Baltimore, 79.9 inches of snowfall for the year. It broke a record from only of 1995 to 96. A lot of these records were broke just a few years back. And then the airports here. Reagan National Airport, 55 inches. Last time that record was set was back in 1898, 1899 winter with 54.4 inches. Wilmington, Delaware, I believe, 66.7. That broke that record in 95. Most of these records are from 99. The oldest one, obviously, was Washington Reagan National Airport. Again, very good facts here from Uncle Hans. And this email is just chock full of records. And what he's trying to point out here, I know we see things from 2012 and 2013, 2014 and 2015, and the point he's making here is that Al Gore and them in 08 and 09 were telling us that snow was not going to be around, and you know, that the ice caps were melting and sea level rise and all this other you know what. And then we start seeing these 112-year-old snow records start to fall. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We're supposed to see less snow. And now here in the late part of the first decade of 2000, we start to see an uptick in snowfall, and it continues to this day. So guys, I'll get more into Uncle Hans' letter, and maybe I'll have to share some more from this, but I've got tons of these where he just sends me documents with links attached to it. And this man, very, very reliable in my opinion, just from hearing his experience. But the one thing that always stuck out about Hans, the first time we ever met, we talked about how global cooling has been kept under wraps for so long. And he once asked another UN diplomat, how come we never talk about the sun's relevance to the climate? And the diplomat replied, and I won't name what country, but the diplomat replied, because it's too inconvenient. The sun is too inconvenient to talk about. That pretty much had me in from day one with this guy. And just the information that he shares with me is outstanding. He does his own research, and he basically is pointing out all these snow records, all these cold records, everything that was predicted not to happen, happening right in front of our faces. So interesting stuff here. Thank you, Uncle Hans, for your insight as always. And we'll be right back, guys, just in a few. So don't you go anywhere. Hang on a second.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.